Welcome, Internet, to the Pixel Play Podcast, your weekly podcast where we get together to discuss all the news, rumors, and discussions going on in the gaming world. I am one of your co-hosts, Kaylan, aka Ktastrophy, joined as always by my co-host, Adam, CSRadical. In this week's episode, we are going to be talking about the longevity of Bobby Kotick as the CEO of Activision and whether that is what is needed to fix that mess going on over at Blizzard. We're going to be talking about PlayStation 5 owners preferring their physical copies versus their digital copies. We're going to be talking about GTA modders going to court over some modifications. All that and a little bit more in this week's episode. If you like that, you can always find us wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube by searching Pixel Play Podcast or by finding us on our socials by searching for Pixel Play Cast. With that being said, Adam, let's jump into it. Before we get into this, I wanted to regale you all with part 2 of the Ballad of Jen, the Kleptomaniac store supplier in Skyrim. If you recall last week, we talked about it. My wife has gotten into Skyrim, and it is an eye-opener watching her play that game. And it's been interesting because last week I told you guys she was basically going around and stealing anything that wasn't nailed down or picking any flower that she found and was just constantly getting overcumbered.
As you do.
Sorry?
As you do.
I don't disagree with you that you do pick up stuff, but she is picking up everything. If there is an option that says pick up, she is picking it up. And everything. Like thousands of thistles at this point. She's now gotten herself companions, not for the benefit of fighting or anything, but merely to be mules for her and her operation of selling everything.
So
and
she's a slave owner.
I mean, I imagine they get a cut. And I mean, I'm sure they're volunteers, I think. But long and short of it, she has become the pure essence of Jeffrey Bezos in Skyrim. Everyone buys stuff from her. She is the one supplier in stores. She came to me and she said, I have a problem. And I said, what is it? She's like, none of the stores have money anymore because she sold so much stuff to them that they all ran out of money and she had no one to sell her stuff to. So she's basically destroyed the Skyrim economy. Yeah, and that's where we leave it on now. And so she's doing better. She's getting a lot better with fighting monsters and stuff, but it's really all just an effort to just get more stuff to run her.
So essentially she's caused a worldwide market crash.
Essentially, except for herself.
The entire planet is bankrupt.
Except her.
So this is Jeff Bezos' dream then. He has all the money.
So apparently I've discovered that what is that? Starfield is actually apparently a sequel to Jen's character, who just gets so much money they develop their own space program and go into space.
So she's got to find more shops to pilfer.
Guys, I have figured out the story of Starfield, and it's all based on my wife. So, Adam, that little story aside, how are you doing, sir?
Well, I'm doing okay, I guess.
Yeah?
I want to complain. There's not much to complain about. Black Friday has at least given me 2 things to play somewhere down the line, although I don't know when that's going to be because Minecraft has a new update and a bunch of my friends are wanting to get back into that. So my brain's going to be like, well, I haven't talked to people in a while. I suppose I should do that at some point.
Peer pressure.
Yeah, exactly. But I do have Yakuza and Guardians of the Galaxy waiting and ready whenever I have free time to put into it. So
where did you get Guardians of the Galaxy from?
Well, okay, Yakuza I got from the store myself. Guardians is through console sharing, so free game.
Hey. Awesome. Yeah, I'm hoping that's on my Christmas list this year is Guardians of the Galaxy, and I know it's got some sales going on Black Friday, and we'll talk about that later in the show. Adam, I figured we probably should just talk about probably the most substantial topic, I think, this week.
So Chrono Cross possibly getting a remaster. All right, so Chrono.
Yes. Yeah, no, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't heard, Chrono Cross is getting a remaster, but
allegedly.
Allegedly. We'll see about that. Do you think, real quick, yes or no, you think that's true?
I don't care actually if it is or not. I just want it. So yes. I'll take cool. Yes because it makes it exist.
Is that really the game that people are clamoring for a remake?
To be honest, no. People just want a Chrono game in general, but Square doesn't like making things that the fans want, so they don't.
Yeah.
I think people would rather them like go full on with Trigger, but Trigger is also going up from a Super Nintendo game, whereas Chrono Cross is a PlayStation game, so you can kind of make it look nicer.
Yeah. Anyways, I just thought I'd bring it up. I have never played it, and so that means nothing to me. The true story we're going to talk about is the future of Bobby Kotick as the CEO of Activision Blizzard. So there's a whole bunch of articles here. Follow along with me. We're going to start with Bloomberg and Jason Schreier, who's basically been leading this whole story. He writes, Microsoft, the title is Xbox Chief says he's evaluating relationship with Activision. So Microsoft core head of Xbox said he's evaluating all aspects of our relationship with Activision Blizzard and making ongoing proactive adjustments in light of the recent revelations as a video game publisher. In an email to staff seen by Bloomberg News, Phil Spencer said that he and the gaming leadership team are disturbed and deeply troubled by the horrific events and actions at Activision Blizzard. He referred to the Wall Street Journal story earlier this week that said Chief Executive Officer Bobby Kotick knew of sexual harassment at the company for years and that he mistreated women. He quotes, "This type of behavior has no place in our industry," Spencer wrote. He joins a swell of outcry from employees and investors and shareholders in demanding a stronger response from the U.S. second biggest gaming publisher. On Wednesday, Sony Group Course PlayStation chief Jim Ryan sent a similar note to staff, writing that he and his leadership were disheartened and frankly stunned to read that Activision has not done enough to address the deep-seated culture of discrimination and harassment. But Spencer went a step further in saying that he would take action. Xbox and PlayStation are among the video game industry's biggest console manufacturers, and Activision has a strong history with Xbox. The publisher's largest franchise, Call of Duty, became successfully largely due to Microsoft's innovation online platform, Xbox Live, which will allow players to connect for multiplayer matches. Most of Activision games are published on Xbox consoles. So this comes back to, and I'm going to just kind of give it because it's a little thing. Approximately 500 Activision employees have signed a petition, and that has gone up since, to petition for the removal of Bobby Kotick, and a shareholder group has called for him to resign, and for two other long-serving directors to step down by the end of the year. Their stock has been taking a nosedive. People are not recommending. So this comes to a second article, and this is by Luke Plunkett at Cottack, saying report Activision CEO Bobby Kotick will consider quitting if he can't fix company's culture. So he writes, besieged Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick, who last week was the subject of staff walkouts and shareholder calls for his resignation, has reportedly said he will consider leaving the company if he can't speedily address harassment issues that have made headlines around the world this year. The Wall Street Journal says Kotick met with Blizzard's executives last Friday and told them that he would consider leaving the company if he can't quickly fix the culture problems at the video game giant. Yeah. So long story short, I guess at one point there was a call, like the board at one point was siding with him, but it seems like that might be turning. Adam, first question: is Bobby Kotick on borrowed time?
No.
You don't think so?
If he's on borrowed time, it's going to be because literally the entire company is going to have to push him out. I don't think it's going to be as simple as a little bit of pressure. I mean, as you said from that one Kotaku article, he's trying everything he can to stay. Mm-hmm. So he's probably been able to sit down in a room with shareholders and be like, look, I'm going to fix this. And if I don't, I'll leave. Which is usually code for I'm not leaving. Even if I fail, you're going to have to push me out. And I think that's a much longer process because that's where lawyers get involved.
See, I think I'm on the opposite. I think that his time is quickly coming to an end. I mean, the fact that, regardless, like, obviously, there's accusations and stuff that he's like known about sexual harassment and that he's, threatened to have people killed and stuff. It's all sort of allegations at this point, but I mean, there's clearly something going wrong at Activision, and the fact that it's now becoming clear that he knew about this, it's not looking good for him. Is that going to change shareholders' opinions? No, because they're driven by money, right? But if we're getting to a point where Activision is going to start seeing negative sales because of this, and I'm not talking, us gamers boycotting their products, because that really doesn't make a difference. But if Xbox and if PlayStation and even Nintendo has chimed in and said that they don't support it, if those people are starting to say, hey, we're going to reassess our relationships with this company, that's going to hurt their bottom line. If, he is constantly embroiled in scandals and he's bringing down the company, that's going to affect profits. And once that starts happening, they don't care what us gamers think. They probably, I imagine, care a little bit what their staff thinks. But when the shareholders and the board start losing money, that's when they're going to start going for his head. Are they going to kick him to the curb with, not a dime in his pocket? No, he'll probably get some sort of package and sort of, hey, here's a golden parachute, get out. But I think if he was here this time next year, I'd be surprised.
The reason that I'm saying no as of right now is because there is nothing there that makes me immediately assume, because Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony saying things do not mean anything until I actually see the action. So
Yeah.
the fact that they're saying it is a precedent, but just because a precedent's been made here does not mean that the follow-up is going to come. There is a very good chance that they're just saying things to see if they can scare him off, and if he just says, no, fuck you, I'm sticking around, what are they going to do? Not carry Call of Duty? Not carry whatever else they pump out? Probably not. It depends on the game, but I can't imagine any console, unless you're Nintendo because your hardware can't handle it. Sorry, I had to put the shot in there. But I don't think Xbox or Sony are going to take the next Call of Duty game and say, we just can't have that on here. No, it's not going to happen. It might be something smaller, but I don't know if it's enough. Now, I will fully admit, though, that most of the reason why I say no anytime soon is strictly because this has been such a shit show for so long already that I just fully expect this to go as long as it can before it inevitably comes to its conclusion. Do I think he's going to eventually step down? Yeah. But I don't know if it's going to be anytime soon, because I feel like with the way the story has gone, that it's going to be dragged out as long as it possibly can, because this really does feel like the man with the golden goose who is going to sit there and just claw and just drag it, just absolutely keep a hold of the carpet as they try to drag his ass out the door. And then when he finally gets to the door, he's now sitting in the door frame holding on for dear life. It's going to take forever. It's like getting a screaming child out of the mall when he really wants a box of cereal.
I think we got a different story of the golden goose when we were kids.
I suppose we did, yeah. There's a lot of stories that we were told as a kid that when you grow up, you go, oh, wait, this might have been true before. It is not true anymore. But I get the honest feeling that, even though the result that we want is probably going to happen, I don't think it's going to be coming anytime soon, because I think this is a much more complex situation, because as far as I know, I don't think the entire shareholder team wants him out, because if that was the case, he'd already be out.
No, so they're starting to get split a little bit, and as I understand, Bobby still has a significant. I'm calling him Bobby like he's we're buddies or something like that. Bobby Kotick does have a significant, if not, I don't think he has controlling, but he has a significant, a voter's stronghold in terms of.
Well, and that's the thing too, right? We're both Canadians. We're dealing with our biggest telecommunications company, and it's messy fallout of getting their owner out there. So, and this is going to be something that takes a long time to settle. This is probably not that much different, and I can only imagine how in American law it can possibly be even worse. So,
yeah,
it's one of those things that I'm like, do I think it's going to happen? Yes. Do I think it'll happen soon? No. Not because of any reason in particular, but just because I look at this kind of situation and just go, Bobby Kotick is going to drag this out as much as possible. So unless the entire shareholding team suddenly changes their mind, and I don't see that happening, because no matter what happens, and this is a million different conversations we can have, but even though some games are not doing as well in terms of PR and stuff, for some reason games are getting played more than they ever are. So there's still a lot of money that's being made, and the diehards that apparently don't care what happens with the company that makes their stuff. You never know. If there's always those couple of people that offset the bunch that just decide to boycott. So it's a really difficult thing to gauge, and that's why the pessimist in me just goes, well, there's never really a big culture shift ever in the gaming industry, so I'm going to go with the side that says the culture shift doesn't happen yet.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part. I don't want to have to come to that rationale, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Do you think that removing him would fix a lot of the issues at Activision Blizzard?
Temporarily, yes. In long term, God only knows. That depends on the person that takes the role.
Yeah, you see, I think it would. I think there needs to be a face to this scandal in terms of, the cynic in me. You need someone to kind of take the fall and be the blame guy. And I think rightfully it's his. If he knew about this and he didn't do anything about it, if he was, participating in it, even that's certainly grounds to be removed. Does it remove the entire problem? No, but it it starts at the top. And if you get someone in there who, and I'm assuming they'll vet the next person a little bit more thoroughly who gets the role, that then trickles down into next management. Like it trickles down. But if you get rid of middle management, but you still have this guy at the top, it doesn't show that anything's fixed. I think getting rid of Bobby Kotick kind of shows that, hey, we are taking this seriously and we are looking to remove and fix what the issues are.
But we do have to keep in mind, though, that Riot also exists, and Riot still hasn't gotten much better in the years following its scandal. So it's a slippery slope. I mean, at the end of the day, will it create a change right away? Yes. How big? Not sure. But whether it lasts or not, that all depends on how the entire industry shifts. Because Activision is a massive company that is the epitome of corporate greed. And I have a hard time believing that that company is going to be the one that shifts. It's going to start up with the indies and work their way up. And it'll be a lot longer before a company like Activision, even if it goes through this scandal right now and puts a new guy in charge or woman in charge, I don't think that necessarily means problem will be fixed guaranteed. I think that's probably like a, putting a Band-Aid on it and hoping to God you don't accidentally reopen the wound.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe for a second that Activision is going to actually take proper steps to make this shift happen. They're going to do the bare minimum so that people shut up for 6 months and the story goes away. That's my honest, pessimistic opinion there. But that's what a lot of corporations do. Whenever something happens, they do whatever they can to get the story cold. And once the story goes away, they just start doing what they used to do, which is pretending like nothing's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it going that route. But I think for the long and short, is removing, Kotick from the top going to fix it? No, but I don't think you can fix it with him still at the top.
No, but at the very least, with him gone, it would start the process. It's a matter of whether they actually continue the process after that.
I want to shift over now. It's just stuff a little bit lighter. This is coming from gamesindustry.biz. So PlayStation 5 owners prefer box games to downloads. So this is coming back to, I think, a discussion we had a little while ago about physical versus digital collections. So this is coming from James Batchelor at gamesindustry.biz. He writes, PlayStation 5 owners prefer box games to downloads. For the PS5's first 10 months, GSD data shows 3 physical titles were sold for every 2 digital. So PlayStation fans across Europe and beyond heavily favor retail for their game purchases, with more than 10 million box games sold in the console's first 10 months on sale. The figures come from the global sales data presentation at GI Live London last month, where the firm's video games consultant Sam Nagy took a deeper look at the console's cumulative sales from its launch in November to the end of August 2021. GSD tracks full game box sales from 23 countries and digital sales from 49 and covers all the major publishers. The company found that the retailers consistently outsold digital, with 51% more box games sold than downloads by the end of August. November 2020 was the only month where the game downloads have outperformed retail sales at 950,000 units compared to 840,000 units. After this, the PS5's retail games have consistently outsold digital every month. And the gap has widened over time. In December 2020, 5 retail games were sold for every 4 downloads. By the end of August, this had increased to 3 box games for every 2 digital. In total, 10.4 million box games were sold for PS5 between launch and the end of August, December, January, June, and August all saw more than 1 million games sold within the month. Meanwhile, 7.5 million digital games were sold during that same period, and no single month saw more than 1 million sales. Adam, does this surprise you at all?
No, because I think I have a counter to why that is.
Why?
So if I'm understanding, it's actually getting a wider gap between box and digital?
Slightly, not drastically.
Well,
I think
yeah,
it's actually...
but the gist is that it went from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2, which is a bigger gap.
So they said the gap has widened over time. In December 2020, 5 retail games were sold for every 4 downloads. By the end of August, this had increased to 3 box games for every 2 digital.
Yeah, it is a bit of a bigger gap when you talk percentage points. The reason I think that actually might not be a win for box games is because I don't know if that entire study is covering Game Pass or services like that. Because it might just be tracking full digital downloads versus full retail purchases. Which my brain goes, well, yeah, that makes sense, because the physical buyers aren't changing their minds, but the digital buyers now have 2 ways of getting their content. So it may be possible, not that digital is maybe like loosening their grip so much as it's just that specific route might not be. Now, at the same time, too, I really have to study the thing more. And I'm not trying to, like, defend digital here. I'm just more, like, trying to get a little bit more of, like,
you know where I'm going with this.
Yes, I know where you're going with it. I also wonder what the places that they used were for studies, because, again, we got to keep in mind, too, like, digital is increasing, but it also is limited based on people's internet possibilities. There is no way that you're going to be spending a lot of money on digital downloads if it's going to take you like a full day to download that game that you want, when you could just go across the street or drive 5 to 10 minutes to your local shop and get it there for almost the same price. And you're going to get it in, I don't know, a couple hours at most, rather than a full day's worth, depending on your connection. I still think there's mitigating factors that would say that we're still at a point that physical is going to win over. And I think, when it comes to digital, the statistics being that, well, again, internet connections. And like I said, and I don't know if this is actually the case or not, but I feel like Game Pass probably isn't included in this, because how do you track that? You really can't. It really just comes down to, like, I think we're at a point that it's probably even Stevens. It's just, there's just that extra data that you can't account for. And then on top of that, I think we'll have this in agreement. Who really cares which is winning, as long as both options still exist in the end, right?
100%. I'm completely with you there. For me,
it's obviously personal preferencing.
It is, yeah. I still think that the digital represents a better value for players. I mean, make your own choice, whatever you want to do. But for me, like, I think physical is still the better situation. Like, we're looking at the Black Friday sales that are going on, and I'm looking at stuff at like GameStop, and the prices there are better than what's currently on the PlayStation Store. Like, even for their own games, like, I'm seeing like a price difference there. So it's interesting that, like, if you went that digital route, if you went that digital only console, you're locked to that store and they can charge whatever the hell they want. The other aspect is with going physical is I have options of purchasing. I'm not having to buy it from one particular store, and that allows me to kind of shop around. And so the other aspect is that, one, I think one of the sales is that if you get a PlayStation for your birthday, Christmas, whatever, people are going to be getting you games, accessories. Like, it's easy when you're there to buy that console that you're also going to pick up some games, and you're going to have, family and friends who would probably want to do the same thing for you as well. It's a lot easier to go to an EB Games and buy a physical copy than it is to buy a access card for X amount of money to buy the game. I think the other thing too is that people want to have that control over their physical library, right? One of the problems with the digital is that it is tied to your account. And I've seen stories on Reddit where people are like, my account got locked out, my account got banned, and now I don't have access to my games. Whereas I have a whole library of games, and no matter what Sony does, I can't lose that collection. And so, well, I mean, it's physical, it can burn down or anything, but no one can choose to say, hey, that collection is now worthless.
Yeah, I think that needs to be fixed. Like, if your account gets banned, it should still say, okay, you're banned from online play. Like, any online services you're banned from, but you should still be able to play anything that's in your account. Like, it shouldn't just, and if it's got to be a full account ban, then it should be you should be giving that same person a reference number, being like, hey, use this link, this will sign you a new account so you can just offline access all the games that are in your account. I don't think it's fair, unless the reason you're banning the account is through piracy issues or things of like them like hacking into the store and getting stuff. But if it's literally like banned accounts for just being a dick in games, like that kind of ban, or stuff, or like just being like a toxic human being, I don't think you should be losing the money that you have. I think that's kind of, as much as like I'd love to see people that are real assholes online get their comeuppance, I think at the same time they should still be allowed to at least enjoy the games that, they're supposed to be enjoying, because banning them completely from these things might actually make them even worse off than they were going out. So yeah, you got to be careful with that.
I just think it's that fact of the control and the lack of, and I mean, I know there's the whole argument, like, you don't really own your games, blah, blah, blah. Like, I still have that physical copy disc that I can then sell to somebody else if I choose to.
There is that too. Like, there always is the resale value. Now with the store, the amount, like, I imagine GameStop, having lower prices, I think it's pretty obvious why, because they're so dead from the pandemic screwing them over, and they need reasons for people to come in the stores. People
Fair
have become
enough.
very accustomed now to just buying digital, so I think they almost have to be like $5 or $10 below just to try to get people in the store and maybe to buy more. And then on top of that, to go with our conversation that we did a few weeks ago with like the prices on digital, Demon Souls hit 40 plus or 43%. Like that is just an example. So it's clear that again, you give it enough time, those baby steps are occurring. So I think back to our previous conversation, it might just be that the process might be slower, or we're forgetting because, you know, in the heat of the moment, you kind of forget how long it takes for games to really hit below price.
Well, I think for me, like, I look at the thing with the PlayStation Store, and Xbox is a little bit different because they got the whole Game Pass thing, but like, you know, you still have the Xbox Store. Like, the thing I'm seeing is that you are currently still in a situation where you are in competition with, you know, you are in competition with Best Buy, EB Games, all that kind of stuff, and you're not being competitive in a situation where, let's say, you know, down the road it becomes a digital only experience. Once that competition's gone, what's going to be the incentive to even lower the games at that point? I feel like if you were wanting to see if PlayStation and Xbox were going to be competitive with their digital only collections, this would be the time that you see it, when they're trying to incentivize you to move away from that digital copy. And I'm frankly not seeing it now, and I don't know. I think there is a possibility of a digital future, but I don't see it being anytime soon, and I don't see it being this generation
And that's
or even
perfectly
the next
fine.
one.
I don't think we should want it to go in any direction.
Mhm.
Like personally,
but clearly.
where we're at, I think this is the best scenario.
Mhm.
Unless we have someone somewhere down the road we can find another option entirely and add to it, sure. But like, if this is what it's going to be for the rest of gaming, fuck it. That's not the worst case scenario. You have options.
No, I think having the options is great.
I think people like, and neither of us are in this camp, but there are people that are like, oh, let's just get rid of physical. Who cares about physical copies? And then you get the people that be like, no, you're gonna get screwed if we go digital only. Like, no, we should just be sticking to physical because at least then I can have something tangibly. It's like, or we do everything, and people have the choice.
Why not both?
I know.
Like the old El Paso commercial.
It's so simple. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm literally only doing digital mostly because it's convenience, and you're doing it because you like having your physical copies, you like having the ability to sell them when you want, and everything else.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really neat is that, like, you and I think we're both in the same mind. Neither one of us is trying to say get rid of the other, but it's interesting that we're both on the opposite ends of the fence.
Except get Game Pass, because it's still a steal of a deal. Just do it.
Oh, Game Pass is still the best deal in gaming. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting to see that, you know, maybe the future isn't as digital only as we once thought it was.
No, and to be completely honest, I don't want it to be either. Because unless like everything is in a digital storefront, like if I can get codes from GameStop and Best Buy and whatever, then fine. If we gotta go that route for digital, then I could deal with that. But I still wouldn't even want to, because again, I know there's people that would rather, like, what do collectors do now? What are you gonna do? Collect codes?
Yeah.
Doesn't sound as fun, does it?
Nope.
Doesn't really sit on a shelf very well.
It does not.
Unless you're playing Unpacking, and then those are digital shelves you're stocking.
That's a reference to last week's episode. Go check it out. Timely review. Adam, you were coming to us this week with a story you wanted to talk about. Speaking of game rights.
I was more just like speaking of digital code, I guess. I'm not going to get too big in the specifics, but those who are aware, at least in gaming, Take-Two is currently in legal proceedings with 4 modders from around the world who basically did a re-release with much more like bug fixing and patching to GTA 3 and GTA Vice City. And I'm going to like, at the very bare minimum, like all Take-Two is trying to say is that, hey, they're using our content, it's copywritten, and that's like they can't do that, so we're suing them for damages. And the opposite is just saying like, hey, they're mostly going with fair use, but there's a few other things in between. I want to start with the moral stuff first, because I feel if I get too deep into the specifics, we're going to kind of lose face of that. So I want to just strictly say 2 things. One, it's very obvious that Take-Two doesn't actually care about this case, but now that they have a trilogy that they're releasing, all of a sudden now they care, because these projects have existed forever and they did nothing. So it's obvious that they actually they never cared about this, but now that there was a monetary incentive to care, now they did. And then the second one is, I don't really care what the legal proceedings say. They're not making money off of these mods, so as far as I'm concerned, I don't think it's something that's worth getting damages for because there's no monetary damage to it. In fact, it probably gets people more likely to spend money on their game in the first place because it's not like it's a re-release that you pay money for and it has nothing to do with Take-Two. You have to buy the game from them to be able to play it. So it's not a case of, you're buying an off version of GTA 3 from another storefront. You're literally buying a copy from Rockstar, but you use the mods from this team to make the game run better. Now, do you want to comment on the moral stuff before I get into the specifics?
No, I think I'm in agreement from a morality standpoint. Like, hey, if you're building something creative and different, like, yeah, fair use and stuff. I think there's a Pandora's box that we're going to talk about, but I think that dives more into the legal aspect of this, and so I'll let you continue.
Yeah, I mean, the gist honestly is Rockstar are being real greedy pieces of shit for doing this. I don't think anybody, outside of the company thinks otherwise, because you as gamers to go, this is bullshit, like, they should be paying Rockstar money for doing this stuff, you're an idiot. Sorry, but it's free mods. You should be happy that somebody gave a shit enough about this game. But in terms of the legal stuff, that's where it gets a little bit murkier, right? Because they're trying to use fair use. But it's also a dicey road for them to go because it's not like they just put in patches. They did reverse engineer the source code. And I think that's where things get murky. I do agree that it shouldn't be considered, copyright infringement because it's not like they're just copying the exact code and then repurposing it for something else. They're literally taking the game that they have not touched in forever and just fixing it. I don't think that's something that should be sued unless, you're Rockstar and you're about to release a really broken version of that, and then you really want to make sure nobody else can show how amazing that it is when you actually put a slight bit of effort into it. But, like, I get where the legal casing might be a little bit more difficult because they didn't do what, say, which Smash, I think it was Project M was the Super Smash Brothers project, because what they did is they create a tool so that it would just patch on top of the original source code, whereas in this case, the modders that are being sued, it's literally the full source code posted plus the fixes, which I think is where it gets a little bit more murky.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I side with the creators. Like, hey, if you're just, taking a game and tweaking it, that's fine. But I totally get where Take-Two's coming from, and I kind of
from a legal purpose.
From a legal point, and I don't think it's particularly that these people are doing something nefarious, but I think what it is that it's just Take-Two protecting themselves, right? It's a situation where they are, clamping down on this to dissuade other people from modding it, because these people are just doing it as a fan-made project, but they're now tweaking it, and once you let one person do it, it sets a precedent that other people can come and do it, and then you don't have control, one, over that game, and you don't have control over that source code at that point. And so unless you start vetting and picking and choosing who can do it, it makes sense why you kind of put a stop to that.
I don't know if suing, though, is the correct way. Like, I didn't mention this in the moral aspect of it. Why was this not just a cease and desist?
Do we not know that it wasn't started as a cease and desist?
I don't know beyond that. All I know is about the actual, like, legal, like, the actual suing.
Yeah. So I would imagine it probably started as a cease and desist, and then it has escalated to this. And I think
okay,
it's just...
so the gist is they filed a DMCA, the team fired back with a counter notice, and it was restored, and then Take-Two filed the lawsuit. So in other words, they tried to just do a cease and desist, they countered, and it was given in their favor, and now they're suing. So that's that to me, that comes off as being a little salty at this point.
I don't know. No, I think they're still just protecting their assets and protecting their property and kind of protecting themselves from other people coming in. Because, like, what if you have a situation where you have once you start opening up the case to modders, you don't really have control unless you start a whole vetted community of it. You can run the risk of, who knows what they put into it, and then
but I mean, we're talking about a case that I don't know if it necessarily applies. I think they're just trying to get a court proceeding to actually put a precedent down so they don't have to deal with it anymore.
Exactly.
To which I go, that's really shitty to do, though, to a bunch of developers that have nothing to do with what you're fighting. Like that's where like the morality of me is really pissed off at this, and I'm trying to like keep that in check when I go through the legal aspects of all of this.
And once again, I'm totally agreeing with you from the moral aspect, but I'm just saying from a legal aspect, I get it. I don't necessarily support it, but I see their
and that's the problem with us being on the outside here is we don't really give a fuck about the legal, because as far as we're concerned, this is just billionaire companies being real asshole-ish with their properties and making sure they have full control. To which I say, I guess if that's your legal right, sure, but I'm gonna call you out for being a greedy bitch about it.
Well, I mean, would it be the case if you had the same thing if it was a small indie developer doing that?
No, I don't think I would change my opinion.
Okay.
Because we're not talking about, somebody taking the code and then completely making a game using that code. We're talking about them fixing it. Like to me, like from a morality standpoint, again, we're talking about a group of 4 guys who love this game and want it to be the best version of that game, and they're not doing anything to like shit on it. They're just fixing all the little things that, honestly, like Take-Two just wouldn't be able to get around to, because that kind of company can't just spend 7 years fully fixing a game. Now, granted, we have companies that can't do even like a full year of fixing their games, so that's a whole different conversation. But in this specific case, my brain goes like, dude, these guys aren't doing anything to make money off of your game. They're just fixing it. Like, if your worry is that people are going to take your original source code and start to make like profit off of by making like full on better versions of your game, fine. But they're not making a profit of any kind. That's where my argument goes. Like, dude, I get why you're doing it, but you're doing it against a bunch of guys that, to every bit of knowledge that I can see in front of me, have not made a cent off of this. And that's kind of where it gets like into the legal trouble of like, I feel like they're just trying to set a precedent. Now there is a precedent of sorts. It's kind of not fully related to this, but Game Genie back in '92 was sued. I get the company Galoop that made it was sued by Nintendo of America, and Nintendo lost because the judge ruled in favor of Galoop, saying that it was not, completely taking their games and turning it into derivative work. It was like, what was the thing? I'm trying to find the paragraph here.
Wasn't it because like Game Genie wasn't necessarily interfering with the source code or something like that?
No, it was literally just like, it's like almost like it was turning pieces of the code off, essentially. So the way that the judge, I found the paragraph, the judge, Fern M. Smith, ruled it as comparing the usage of Game Genie to skipping portions of a book or fast-forwarding through a purchased movie. Thus, the altered game content did not constitute the creation of derivative work, as Nintendo had argued. Smith wrote that having paid Nintendo a fair return, the consumer may experiment with the product and create new variations of play for personal enjoyment without creating a derivative work. So, to take that statement, I still look at what this specific situation calls for, and I don't necessarily know if this falls into like something that they could sue for, because my brain's still going in the direction of they're not doing anything maliciously. They're just. But this is again where the legal system is just way. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not gonna have a clue on what this.
I was gonna say illegal doesn't always relate to malicious, right?
Yeah. But like in the end, we're still talking about not anything overlapping. They're not like putting, when you see people try to modify multiple games into each other, they're not doing anything like that. They're literally just patching fixes. Now, as some people have said, including somebody who claimed to be part of the Project M team from that Smash thing I told you about, they said that honestly, if they had just used it as a tool and started from the ground up and just like adding into it rather than using the source code directly and offering the source code as part of the download, I think that's where they're finding their problem. I think that's where the legality can come into play, is because when you download this mod, you're downloading the code and the fixes. Whereas if you did it as a patch, this might have completely avoided the situation entirely. Okay. Yeah. It's a weird overall situation. It just comes from both ways. From a morale standpoint, Take-Two can go fuck themselves. But from a legal standpoint, well, we're not lawyers. We're not going to really be able to be too dug into it. My brain goes, I feel like this should be considered fair use, but that's for a judge to rule, not me. If I had the opinion on it, I think that should be considered fair use, because I don't feel like that's doing something that would be considered like taking copywritten content, because they're not making any money off of it and they're not doing anything to overlap it with something else. They're just fixing the game. And again, for the morality issue, sorry, Take-Two, that you are a little bit butthurt that somebody is apparently good at doing their job, and you guys apparently can ship a game out with absolutely 1,000 bugs that you couldn't be asked to, fix. That's the thing, like, the judge will do whatever the judge wants to do and give them the monetary value that they think is worth it, but every gamer on the outside should be looking at Take-Two being right now and being like, this would have just never happened if you fix your shit. Like, again, it goes back to what we said 1,000 times. If you just release the game in good condition, this doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be modders and people modding things.
And people are glad that people do it. Like, how many Cyberpunk PC players were so ecstatic that people were fixing the game faster than CD Projekt Red was? Mm-hmm. Again, because I got to take my Cyberpunk shot.
You got to do it. All right, I think we'll leave it there. Adam, I want to bring in a new segment. We'll see if this sticks, but I want to throw in a new segment out, give this a shot. I don't know what I'm going to call this yet, but I got a little challenge for you. I'm going to give you, what did we say, 10 trophies?
Yeah.
10 game achievements. And you need to guess what the game is. So I'm going to give you the title. I'm going to give you the titles of the trophies, and you have to guess which game it is. So are you ready? Do we need to go over the rules again?
So I guess the rules are you're giving me 10, and if I need help, I can ask for like 1 or 2 hints pertaining to like some of the trophies. Because we're not doing descriptions, because there are some games that descriptions can give it away entirely, because all they got to do is say a keyword, and you're like, oh, that. Because we did one earlier before the show, and the second you said plasmids, I went, oh, BioShock, done.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to guess between 3 games, but realistically.
Yeah. So I'm gonna throw ones, and I'm gonna kind of pick them so like to kind of hint at it. I'm not gonna try and completely stump you, but I'm not gonna.
Am I allowed to get a guess for every trophy, and then by the end I have to commit to one if I don't get it right?
You've got 10 questions. You've got 10 clues.
Okay.
You can keep guessing until the end. Once you run out, you'll get one. I'll give you one guess for each trophy.
Because who knows? There might be one that makes me like, oh, it might be that.
Okay. Let's do this. I'm gonna find the first one here. Trophy number 1, community organizer.
Okay, I got nothing for that one.
Trophy 2, scavenger.
Okay.
Or sorry, scabber.
Scabber?
Scabber. Scavver.
Oh, okay.
Scabber.
Okay, no, I still got nothing.
All right. Fixer upper.
Okay.
Born survivor.
All right, the first one I'm going to try is State of Decay.
No, it is not State of Decay.
Okay.
Trophy number 5, nuclear family.
Fallout 4?
It is Fallout 4, sir.
I was trying to work. The nuclear one kind of gave it away. So the one I would have asked for a hint for, because I figured that would have been the best hint. What was the description for Scaver?
Scaver is, where is it here? Where'd it go? Scaver, gather 1,000 resources used for crafting.
Okay, that would not have helped me. I mean, it probably could have narrowed it down a little bit. Scaver was a weird title, so I'm like, okay, that might actually refer to something.
Yeah, so the other ones I was looking at going for, I was going to go for Rocket's Red Glare.
I think that definitely would have led me to Fallout 2 for the Americana.
Semper Invicta.
That would have made me think Call of Duty.
Yeah. Unlikely Valentine.
Oh, yeah, that would have been a hint because Valentine's the one guy's name, right?
Yeah. And then if you were really struggling on number 10, I was going to go with War Never Changes, which would have given you...
Well, yeah, but then that would have been too easy.
Yeah, it's the first round. I'm going to see. This is the first one. I'll come back with another one next week, and we'll see how it goes. See if this goes. See if I could actually get you stumped based on the trophy questions. So,
well, normally they call them trophy hunters. I think we should call it trophy stumpers.
Oh my god, I love it. Trophy stumpers. There we go. New segment name right there. This is how we would do things on the show, on the fly here, guys.
Wait, we do anything planned? I guess that is a lie. We do at least plan a little bit before.
We do plan for this. Don't tell them how the sausage is made. We are professionals here.
in all but the name.
Yeah. All right, Adam, I think we're gonna wrap it up there. Any sort of closing thoughts before we wrap it up? Anything we want to leave off with?
Apart from the fact this might be our speed run episode, because I think this might be the fastest episode we ever do, but
It is gonna be a short one, but it's getting late. So
yeah, whole thing about being a parent, I guess, right?
That whole parenting life, it really interferes with your podcasting aspirations. So
Not
you
me.
do what you can.
I live alone. Wait, oh, that sounds sad now.
You played yourself.
Eh.
All right, Adam, let's leave it there. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. If this is your first time watching us or listening to us, thank you so much for joining us. We hope it was good for you. It was certainly good for us. If you're one of the regulars, we really appreciate you sticking with us. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can always email your questions, your comments, your concerns at pixelplaypodcast@gmail.com. If you want to get in touch with us on our socials, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter by searching for pixelplaycast. We also have a Discord if you want to join us and fellow listeners there to talk about everything we talk about in the show. Please do so. Links are in the description. If you guys are watching us on YouTube, know that you can take us wherever you go by searching for us on your favorite podcast station. And if you want to see our lovely faces while we do this, we are on YouTube searching for Pixel Playcast podcast, all one word. We host videos every week. We take this show, we break it up into smaller chunks and spread it out throughout the week like you're rationing food on a deserted island. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and we will see you guys next week. Bye for now.